and welcome to the English Department Career Day, which is a collaboration between the Career Development Center and the English Department. Some of you know me, but in case you don't, my name is April Lindner, and I am a faculty member in the English Department. I teach various kinds of writing. And throughout the day, we've invited alumni to join us for conversations about their careers in order to give you insight into different career paths, industries, and to get advice on how to enter and thrive in these fields. And as we've said, I want to make sure you all know that these sessions will be recorded. And our guest today is Krista Rossi. Krista Rossi is a 2017 graduate from St. Joe's with a major in English, who works for Breaking Data as an account executive. Krista has kept true to her roots as an English major, both in and out of the office. Her first full-time position was as a medical journalist, and from there, she moved into a marketing agency setting where she's now an account executive. While at St. Joe's, Krista was active as the editor-in-chief of the Crimson and Gray, as well as being a summer scholar. And she continues to write on her own and is finishing the second draft of a novel and has been publishing poems in literary magazines, one of which nominated her for a prestigious Pushcart Prize. And I am delighted to welcome Krista back to Hawk Hill. Welcome, Krista.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
I have a list of questions I'll be asking you, followed by Q&A from our listeners. So let's get started. We're going to begin with a series of career-focused questions.
Awesome. Sounds great.
Okay. Krista, could you describe within your current role the core responsibilities and what a typical day or week looks like for you?
Sure. So as an account executive, I definitely wear a few hats, and my days and weeks can vary depending on what specific projects we're doing. But as an account executive at a boutique healthcare marketing agency, we mainly serve clients in their marketing needs, specifically in the pharmaceutical healthcare space. So in my role, I have a number of responsibilities that range from content and product creation, which can include concept inception, writing, designing, etc. So all the moving parts that go into creating a deliverable, as well as client communication and management, and just general marketing strategy, both on an internal corporate level and on an external level within our clients' brands and projects.
Thank you. And how did you decide to pursue this career?
Well, I kind of fell into it in some ways. When I first graduated, I knew I really wanted to do a role that involved writing and editing, since those were my passions. But at the time, I wasn't really sure what industry would be the best to bring those passions to. It wasn't really until I met a remarkable patient in my first full-time position as a medical journalist that I realized I wanted to help therapies reach patients who need them in whatever way that could look. As part of one of my first major writing assignments, I was asked to interview a really incredible woman named Darcy, who had a rare disease called light chain amyloidosis. And she was really accomplished in her career. She was an amazing professor, a much loved family member, loved telling me about her dog rescues when we met together. But sadly, before I was able to finish her article, I had received word that she had passed away a few days after meeting. And I realized that I was probably one of the last people she was really honest with about her story, about living with a rare disease. And I was honored that she entrusted me with that. And I realized that there are a lot of Darcys in the world, and I would like to play my part to help them in whatever way that looked.
And what surprised you about the most about your current job so far?
How much room there is for creativity, I would say. You really have to think outside the box when it comes to different types of projects. And I really enjoy that intellectual stimulation. No project is the same, and I like the variation.
Well, let's backtrack a little and talk about how you first got your first job or your first internship. How did you manage to get where you are?
Yeah, so I have a two-part answer for you. LinkedIn and the SJU career fair. I landed my first part-time job by connecting with a former SJU English major alumni who had a proofreading business. And I did that part-time while I was continuing my search for a full-time position. And while proofreading, I was exposed to a lot of different industries and different types of content. And I realized that I gravitated most towards things in the healthcare space. I really liked proofreading for the local hospitals and those types of clients. So when I revisited the SJU career fair the following year, I connected with a life sciences communications company, and that was how I landed my first job as a medical journalist.
Okay, terrific. And maybe you can tell us about the ways in which your organization and or your industry demonstrate a commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion.
That's a good question. Yeah, I would say in the healthcare industry, at least specifically in pharmaceuticals, I do feel there is a great commitment to patients and just ensuring that they receive the best care and therapies that they need to lead full lives. In my experience, from oncology to rare disease to even just common conditions, making sure that life-altering therapies reach patients who need them is a really big driving catalyst, and it's an inspiring work mantra to work under.
And what is something that you wish someone had told you when you were in school?
Another good question. Not everything is going to go according to plan, and that's a good thing. Embrace the plot twists in your career when they happen, and be open to new opportunities that you didn't consider before. You might be surprised by just how well they fit or how much you like them.
And that sounds like excellent advice to me. Let's see. What 2 or maybe 3 experiences should students engage in while in college to help prepare them for entering the field that you're in upon graduation?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I wasn't totally sure how to answer this question, but because I arrived in my job in a process that wasn't super linear, I think just being open to experiences in general is what's most important, because you don't know where those experiences will take you. So just be as open-minded as you can, and when experiences arise, just try to take them.
And oh, what English courses did you take that helped you prepare for the job market, either directly or indirectly?
I think my answers for this probably also tie into your next question, because they definitely overlap. But there were definitely a few courses and experiences that I would say definitely shaped the path I took with my career. One course I did take was the Inside Out class. I believe this was a service learning course at the time. And taking this class alongside inmates at a correctional facility in Philadelphia really taught me the value of perspective by thinking and seeing from others' point of view, which is helpful in any field that anyone goes into. And I like to think this in turn helped create a greater awareness in myself and just of those around me. Other experiences that you touched on, Dr. Linder, were the Summer Scholars Program and also an honors thesis that I worked on. And collectively, these 2 experiences helped me write the last 2 books of a trilogy that I worked on as an undergrad. And that was a really valuable experience, just simply thinking through, researching, mapping, editing, writing an entire trilogy was really invaluable, because it taught me how to think big with complex ideas and just see them through in the long term. So learning how to set long-term goals and achieving them and sticking with them.
Well, that's really impressive. Yeah. What other experiences, internships, honors thesis, service learning courses, study abroad, or experiential learning like Inside Out helped you prepare for the role that you're in today?
I would say all of those things probably tied into that, and just also, taking risks, I would say, quote unquote, risks with courses. I would always try to take at least one course a semester that was a little outside of my comfort zone, or that was a little different from something I would usually go towards, just to try and push myself to grow.
What advice would you give to students as they think toward the job market?
I would say it's okay to know exactly what you want to do, but it's also okay to not know exactly what you want to do. If you don't know yet what you want to do, just start by looking at what you're good at and what you're passionate about, and that will lead you towards a good path.
And how does your Jesuit education impact how you work, and also the career decisions you've made to date?
That's a really good question as well. I would say, as a Jesuit educated professional, I like to think that I keep values in mind with my work. I do take time to reflect on how I can better serve those around me, and how I can continuously grow on an individual level so I can better benefit the collective community that I'm a part of.
And then what types of internships should students try to secure to prepare them for the job market?
Yeah, I've been asked this question a lot by students that I've talked to, and I really believe there's no one size fits all when it comes to internships. A lot of it depends on what your interests are, or what you want to grow in. But I will say that I think working on or being part of a team is a really valuable skill to have in the workplace, and it's worth seeking out internships that include that in their curriculums. And I also think it's important to look for someone who will be a mentor for you and help you grow as you go through that process.
Oh, very helpful. Thank you. And then the last of my questions is, can you say a little something about, do you have any interview or networking tips to share with students?
Sure. For networking, there's probably two main points. One is definitely make a LinkedIn. LinkedIn is what you need if you want to connect with people professionally, and fill it out as much as you can. Make it as robust as you can. This is how you communicate your brand as a professional. So fill in as much detail as you can, and then start having conversations with different professionals. Connect with them, talk with them. Find out what you like and what you don't like about their roles or their industries. You might find that you're surprised with some of your results.
Well, thank you very much. Now we're going to transition to the question and answer portion of the session. Students, if you have a question, please use the raise hand icon and I will call on you. And when it's your turn, please be sure to let Krista know your name and your year at SJU. So let me see. Oh, Lily, Lily Panessa.
Hi. Is my mic okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Mine's a little off topic, but like, what was your trilogy about? I kind of want to know what that was about.
I was really into fantasy, so very fantastical kind of elements, not related to science at all, but just very imaginative.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
And it all connects like islands connecting underwater, right?
Yes,
Yeah, all kinds of writing.
exactly.
So let's see, anybody else? I'm looking for hands. Oh, Grace. Here, Grace Wetzel is up next.
Hi. Thank you, Krista, so much. I teach a professional writing class called Writing for Organizations, and we discuss, oh, can you hear me first of all? Okay.
Yes, yes.
Okay, great. We've highlighted that professional writing and communication doesn't need to be dull and tedious, and that there can be a place for creativity. I was interested when you briefly touched on the role of creativity in your job, and I was wondering, can you share anything else about the role of creativity in your written, oral, or multimodal communication?
Sure, yeah, I can elaborate a little bit. So like I said, a lot of the work I do in the marketing agency setting is very unique. Clients come to us with very specific challenges or requests, and our solution, whatever deliverable that looks like, is a very custom solution. So you do have to really think through your audience, which I think English majors are really good at doing because they're trained to do that. So taking your audience into account, your message, what your narrative is, and then translating that correctly into the project so it achieves everything you're looking to do in terms of your goals and objectives is really important. So I don't know if that answers your question, but just being able to think through all the parts of kind of a story.
Sure, that's great. Thanks so much, Krista.
And I think we've got some chat questions. Is that right?
Okay.
Yep. Would you like me to read those, or would
Well, I'm
you like...
sure. Yes, please.
Okay, so from a student in Professor Green's class, Kenzie, how did you manage your coursework when you were looking for jobs, meaning like kind of end of senior year? If you can talk about the balance for that.
Sure. Yeah, I know that I definitely use the career center. Kind of making myself show up in person somewhere helped me accountable. It's so easy to just put it on your calendar, push it off, and you never actually get to do it. But if you have to show up somewhere in person, you're more likely to get done your goals on the career hunt front. So definitely use the career center. I know I met a lot of really helpful people there.
Great, thank you, and thank you for that plug. Another student, Layla, how would I go about getting an internship for the summer, particularly in medicine?
That's also a great question. I personally did not have an internship in this industry or really setting. So I probably don't have a lot of great advice for you. I could connect with you offline though and ask some of my colleagues who have done them if you're still interested in that.
And again, the Career Center can help you with some of those resources in terms of finding internships or full-time jobs. Okay, another question in the chat. Isaac asked, what part of being an editor for the Crimson and Gray benefited you the most?
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot to being an editor-in-chief that gave me a lot of transferable skills. And I remember that point on my resume was a really big talking point when I was interviewing for my first full-time position. You're doing team management, so you're learning how to work on a team, manage them, get things done, get people to work together. That's a big point. And then also just being able to manage, organize, and work through a pretty overwhelming amount of content, from sorting through submissions to, getting those submissions approved and edited and in some kind of an organizational format to put into the magazine, assembling it. There's a lot of logistics that go into the publishing aspects of it, making sure you're within budget for what you receive, and then print quality. There's different types of printing. So just kind of all the moving parts of that project were really good to highlight for Crimson and Gray.
And actually, if I could jump in and make a little plug for the Crimson and Gray, you can start at just the editorial staff level. That's how most people do it. So if you're at all interested in getting something good and writing related on your resume, or on just meeting up with other writers, making connections, it's networking, just as other kinds of networking are. Please do consider it, because I think it is a great place for writers to find each other, to connect with each other, and to begin to get some of that experience and kind of all the experiences that Krista spoke about. So yes.
Join Crimson and Gray. It was a great experience.
Yes.
All right, we have more questions, and unless somebody wants to raise hand and kind of ask over the Zoom, we can certainly continue with some of the questions that are in the chat. Okay, so Riley asked, this might sound simple, but how much fun do you have as a full-grown adult? And then adds, in the workforce, etc. So I guess, Krista, can you talk a little bit about the difference between being a student and kind of being out of school?
Sure. Yeah. I remember, it's funny how much you remember. You definitely have more autonomy when you're in the office compared to when you're in school. You have someone kind of hovering over you, making sure you're getting your work done in a school setting, whereas once you're in the office, it's up to you to get it done. So there's a lot more time management that goes into your part, which can be fun because you can move at your own pace. And depending on your role, there's also a lot of freedom to involve yourself in different projects that maybe you're interested in, which will take your career in different directions. So I would say kind of the autonomy and freedom to move in different directions is pretty fun.
And there's a hand. Vincent.
Hi. Just kind of going off of that, I was wondering, like, what is the work-life balance just kind of like in your career? Because it seems like the kind of thing where it could go either way. Like, you could spend just all night, just keep editing going, even when you're not supposed to be working. So kind of how do you manage to balance that?
That's a great question. That was something I definitely struggled to find a good balance with in the beginning of my career. It is, especially in, content creation roles, it is so easy to get sucked in and you just lose track of time, which is a good thing because it means you're passionate about it. But you definitely want to prevent burnout. So just making sure you're showing up and, putting in your 8-9 hours, whatever your agreement is with your employer. And then also just making yourself stop when you have to give yourself that rest and that recharge so you can remain sharp, creative, and on your feet. And also working with your manager, depending on who your manager is, they'll help you set healthy, guidelines for yourself and guardrails so you don't overdo it.
Would anybody else like to ask a question?
So we do. I've got 2 questions in the chat. One was sent directly to me from Hannah. How do you think the SJU's English classes benefited you in your career? Which I know you talked a little bit about, but maybe specifically, or maybe even give us an example of a time that it came into play.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think just the English major curriculum as a whole gives a lot of really invaluable skill sets, and they're all very transferable to a variety of industries, not just what I work in. I know a lot of my classmates have moved on to do really incredible things from the English major. We're all in different industries doing different roles. I don't know how the English major is structured now, but back when I was a student, there were different types of tracks. Some people were more on like a literary track. I was on a writing track. And just kind of staying true to your track a little bit can help you go in a direction that you'll eventually find is rewarding as a career. So I did a lot of writing intensive courses, and a lot of them looked very different. They were in different subjects. They were in different, the writing outputs were in different formats. But it was a really good exercise for what I do now in the marketing agency setting, which is creating a lot of different types of content that look really different and feel really different, and they're very custom. So just kind of exercising your brain to think in new ways from different perspectives and working with content that isn't always super familiar, I would say is a good challenge for yourself.
And it looks like we have a lot of questions coming in through the chat. So
Yeah, April, if you want to kind of choose them and go forward, I'm happy for that to happen. Or if you want me to continue doing it, whatever's best for you.
Let's see. I can do it. So Alyssa asks, what is your advice for transitioning between jobs with different settings?
Yes, excellent question, because I have done that. The important piece to focus on is transferable skills. It's easy to, fall into self-doubt and hyper-focus on all the experience you don't have and how, all the things you're missing for one particular role or another. But a lot of it has to do with those transferable skills. So, are you a good communicator? Do you have good writing and verbalization skills? Are you a critical thinker? Are you a good team player? Look for those underlying themes in the job descriptions that you're applying for and pull out your experiences that speak to those. I've also found that as a young professional, attitude will carry you where your experiences can't. So showing up with an eagerness to learn and just a positive attitude will take you a long way as well.
Thank you. And we have a follow-up to an earlier question from Dr. Green. How much of your job involves remote work, and what are the pluses and minuses of that?
Yes, so I am mostly an in-office position. I do have flexibility to work from home when need be. But I do prefer to be in the office. I like to collaborate with my team members, but it's also a comfort to know I have the flexibility to be remote when I need to. So it's kind of a hybrid role, but just finding your balance and what you need in your life is important to consider too.
Thank you. And Sebastian asks, have you considered going back to school, master's or PhD, and why, or I guess why not?
Not at this time, no. Maybe one day, but not at this time.
Yeah. And okay, Patrick Oakes asks, do you ever encounter writer's block in your career? And what are some activities you do to overcome this writer's block? Something writers are all very concerned about.
Yes, it's true, especially when you're in super writing intensive positions, the writer's block, it does come. And it's often, I have found, the first sign of burnout, which means you need to take a step back and just recharge a little bit. Sometimes you're just pushing yourself too hard and you need to recharge your batteries. I know I hit this the most in my first position as a medical journalist because my job was almost exclusively writing. I wrote over 400 articles in 11 months, which was like an obscene volume. And there was lots of points of writer's block. So just trying to step back a little bit, get some fresh air, maybe go for a walk, talk to a friend, do something else creative that's not staring at words. Just give your brain the break that it needs.
Very good advice. Thank you. And Lucas asks, how important would you say it is to stay involved with your alma mater and keep in contact with your previous professors?
I mean, I'm biased, but I think it's important. You never know what will happen from connections, and it's nice to keep in contact with people who help you grow along the way. So definitely keep in contact if you can.
And speaking as one of the professors, we definitely really love and appreciate it when our former students stay in touch with us and let us know what they're doing and ask, and just kind of touch base occasionally. You never know, you might sort of hit it where a professor knows of an opportunity and can connect you with it. So definitely a good thing to do. So let's see. Christina asks, for students that were not English majors, are there any courses or resources you recommend to pick up on some of those skills?
That's a really good question as well. When I was in college, I did have a roommate who was not an English major, but by watching me, she really wanted to be one, so she minored in it. And she ended up taking a few writing intensive courses to sharpen up on some of her writing skills. So just looking for, I'm not sure how the course catalogs are anymore, but I know they used to be labeled as like whether they were writing intensive or not. So just looking for courses that kind of have those tag on them. And also just pop into the professor who's listed to teach that course and talk to them a little bit about it before you take it. Just to get a flavor for, what it will be. That's a good way to course shop, I guess.
Yeah, I would like to echo definitely a minor in English, or if your major permits, a second major in English is a good route to go. Yeah, it's useful for a lot, for I think almost any field I can think of. So absolutely. Thank you. And we have Gabriel. What do you do to keep focus in the topic when you're writing? Let's say that you have to write several documents, essays, and discussions during the day. How do you keep focus?
Yes, this definitely comes down to a lot of time management. So plan in your day. You can't always wing it. Obviously, things do come up and you have to be flexible depending on the needs of the day. But try to be as planned as possible and give yourself enough time and space to write what you're trying to write well and not rush it, because nothing good ever comes from rushed work. Give yourself time to put it down and walk away. So maybe give it a first draft, lay it down, move on to your next project. After that project, revisit that first one with new fresh eyes. Giving yourself, if you have a bunch of things to write that are kind of different from each other, just stack them in a way where you have enough variation as you're going from project to project, because you're giving your brain a break, and you'll be more likely to focus if you're giving yourself a little bit of diversity in your work.
So would anybody in the Zoom room like to raise their hands, ask their questions? Anybody have any more questions, or we can still, we have time to take some in the chat room too. Anything you're dying to know or just curious about?
This is Gabriel. Have another question.
Oh, yes.
So, writing is fascinated. The logic, but when you write about a topic, to get to the audience and to talk about the vocabulary that they use, how you can handle that new vocabulary for new topics or topics that you already know.
Right. So are you asking if how to incorporate kind of unfamiliar language or terms when you're entering like a writing project.
That sounds right. That sounds like a good way. Yeah.
Well, if that's your question, I remember when I first entered this industry, there were a lot of terms and words that I had never heard of before. And you just can't be intimidated. As an English major, you all have context clues, skills. You're able to read between the lines and connect things. So don't be intimidated. They're just words. Use your context to figure out what they mean. Look them up. You'll eventually see them over and over again, and you'll get used to them. It's just like, you know, a little vocabulary skill, but don't be intimidated by super long scientific words. They end up usually being something super simple in the end anyway.
Thank you. Anybody else want to ask a
Thanks so
question?
much.
I'd like to ask a question. Krista, you mentioned, I think twice on the Zoom about LinkedIn and how important you think it is. Can you talk about how you utilize it? Because I think a lot of students are told you should have a LinkedIn account, and then they make it and they don't know what to do. So can you talk about how it's helped you, things that you've done that have worked well, kind of some tips and tricks with LinkedIn?
Sure. Yeah. So your LinkedIn is basically how you market yourself as a professional. So you want to put as much information as you can to tell the story of who you are. There's a lot of different features in LinkedIn to help do this. There's visual elements, and then there's also written elements. You have that banner piece, which I think is like behind your headshot area. I mean, use that space as a visual to tell your story. It's the first thing people are going to see when they land on your page. So, you know, you can put words on it, you can make it strictly images, but, you know, for instance, if you're looking to go into the healthcare setting, maybe put something sciencey or some kind of a healthcare picture there with some words about, maybe like 2 major words just to talk about that communicate who you are, or like kind of what your mantra is as a professional. There's also a lot of text fields below in the body of the profile that you can fill out. There's a little about me section, which I strongly encourage you fill out. It's an opportunity for you to say a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you're interested in. It's the first kind of written piece that people see in the profile. And then also, there are the job fields, but I know a lot of you are undergrad, so you don't necessarily have jobs, but you can use that to communicate the kind of job you're looking for. So you can use descriptors like storyteller, communicator, aspiring marketer. You can use those buzzwords to kind of pop out at people on LinkedIn. And then just really fleshing out all of your experiences. It's okay if they're not, you know, corporate level positions or full-time positions, but list out everything you've done in school. Have you done an honors thesis? Is there a course you took that was super interesting? Fill all that stuff out. There's also a new feature to add projects where you can showcase like the actual files or a link to it. So if you've, you know, done Crimson and Gray or some other kind of big project, you can use that as a little call out to show off what you've done. And there's, you know, you can also list awards, publications, a variety of things. So just fill it out as much as you can. And then start connecting with people. People will be more likely to connect with you if you have a robust, filled out profile, because they'll feel like you're not kind of a spammy account, or they'll see similarities or familiarities that they want to connect with that are comforting. So definitely fill out your LinkedIn. I can't encourage that enough.
Thank you.
Oh, I think I just saw a question come in over the transom. Oh, interesting, from Gabriel. What do you think about the myth? What you write is what you become.
That's a good question. I've never thought about it from that way, but I think people write what they know a lot of times. So I'm going to just answer your question maybe with another question. I think, you know, people write what they know. And from there, you learn more just by starting with what you know and branching out into different territories that you're less familiar with.
Would anybody else like to ask a question? Actually, I'm going to piggyback off Gabriel's question and ask you, so in researching pieces of writing, have you ever learned anything that kind of has changed who you are or how you think, or maybe changed your career trajectory or anything like that?
Yes, I would definitely say, going back to my experience by meeting Darcy, I had never realized just how much is lacking in the rare disease space in terms of available therapies. And it wasn't until kind of meeting a patient and then reading some of the literature related to that patient's rare disease, I realized just how the overwhelming majority of rare diseases and even some cancers don't have appropriate treatments that are really targeted specifically for those diseases. And that definitely changed my perspective in terms of what I would like to focus on helping in the healthcare space. So.
Terrific, thank you. Anybody else have a question, either via chat or, oh, okay, here is one from Dr. Green. What was the most challenging piece you wrote?
Really good questions too. I've definitely written a few really challenging pieces. Writing Darcy's interview was very hard just because it was very emotional. But in terms of like very challenging content, I would say things that are really long, big, and complex. So something that was kind of challenging for me that I've done recently was writing training modules for a rare disease. So basically trying to train a sales force on how to talk and communicate about a therapy for a rare disease. And just thinking through all the moving parts of that, what they need to know, and making sure it's, you know, factual and accurate. And just thinking from all the different perspectives in the room, from the physician to the sales rep, even to the patient, because that's who's affected at the end of the line. That was definitely something that was a little challenging because it was a series of modules. So thinking through that, writing it, also designing it, programming it, the whole thing.
And we have a question from Christina. I'm wrapping up my master's in writing studies. Is that considered writing intensive courses?
That's a good question. This might be for you more so, Dr. Lindner.
I would say that yes, absolutely. I mean, the degree is a writing intensive degree. Thinking about writing as a process, thinking about you know, building up a portfolio of your own writing. Actually, that's a question I have for you, Krista. Did you find that having a portfolio, were you asked to show a portfolio of your own writing when you applied for the jobs that you have applied for and gotten?
Yes, I actually was asked to send a portfolio. I'm trying to remember what I had included in it. I definitely had Crimson and Gray, the physical copies as well as the digital copies. I had, I think, an academic paper or two. I have to go back and check, but I remember I tried to have a good variety of different types of writing because, at least in the marketing setting, you need to be able to write from a bunch of different types of formats and perspectives and styles.
Okay, thank you. And Dr. Green asks, did you do any freelancing as an undergraduate, and do you recommend that?
I did not do any freelancing. I think there's really only value in it if you're having some guardianship with it, like a mentor figure. There's still so much to be learning as an undergrad, at least that was how I felt as one. So I really tried to do experiences where I felt like someone was helping me grow and kind of guiding me, because I wasn't always sure the right direction to go in.
And Stephen Lorenzo has his hand up. Stephen.
Hi, how are you? I was wondering how important you think it is to keep your interview skills sharp even when you get a position in the business world.
Great question. It's important to keep them sharp all the time. Just from the point of knowing how to like publicly speak. I know when I was getting ready to graduate, I was really terrified of public speaking. But it's a good practice to just put yourself out there, being able to take questions on the fly. Sometimes people surprise you with questions, not knowing how to think on your feet. So those are good skills to keep sharp, but you can also keep them sharp in ways outside of just strictly interviewing, you know, pushing yourself to, you know, do presentations or just be in a more forefront role is a good way to keep those skills sharp.
Thank you. Awesome.
And in the chat, Dr. Green says, for graduate students who are here on the call, there will be more conversation about life after writing studies tonight at 6:30. So that's something to keep in mind. And you can email her for the link. That's Dr. Ann Green. And Sam asks, oh, and actually here's Dr. Green's email, agreen@sju.edu. And you can all see it there. I mean, I imagine the chat is open to everybody. So, Sam Dumont asks, how do you keep refining your skills even after you graduate?
Another great question. I try to read as much as I can in my spare time, in addition to doing just independent writing projects. I think it's important to unplug when you can and just allow yourself to be really creative, kind of with no lines. So just, reading things for pleasure, or, picking up something that's going to push yourself a little bit. I'm in a book club, and I also have a small writing partner where we trade writing back and forth a little bit. So just having those independent outlets are really important as well, I think.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions? Anybody? Okay, then. Well, in that case, last chance. Just in case somebody's shy and just kind of hovering on the edge of no. Okay. All right, then. Please, all of you, join me in thanking Krista for joining us today and for providing such great insight into your career. And Krista, we're grateful for your time, and we really do hope to see you back on Hawk Hill soon. And viewers, just a reminder that this session was recorded and will be available for viewing on YouTube in about a week. So, thank you, Krista.
And please feel free to connect with me offline, connect with me on LinkedIn if you have any questions that you are too afraid to ask in front of everybody, or you just want to continue the conversation. I'm happy to answer any questions you think of later. So don't hesitate to reach out, and follow Breaking Data on LinkedIn.
Thank you so much, Krista. And thanks to everybody for being here. And